Welcome back, everyone. We're back with another controversial topic related to the sampler and the simpler in these two DAWs here. So we're going to take a look at these two plugins together on a track with the same volume, same color even, and even the default skin. And I'm going to go ahead and just, let's check here. We have an audio input and output of the same core audio, 44K, 512 samples. Let's come into Bitwig and let's set up the audio. So it's the same 512 sample rates automatic. We'll put it to 44K, apply now. We can even put our input device as that, not that it matters. And everything is the same in terms of the audio engine settings. So now it's up to the DAW itself and whatever this just sounds like. So for this example, we're going to use a pad sort of thingy I have, and it's going to be the C3. So it sounds like this. Going to place it in here. Going to go to Ableton. Going to take this. I'm going to put it in there. So now we have them both there. So by default, when opening these two devices, this is what we have in the Bitwig one. We have a attack, hold, decay, sustain, release envelope controller with some curvature options. We have a sustain release or a steal release time and some pitch, some glide, some of the extra options. And then we have the velocity, gain, pan, mono, staccato, I don't know. And then the device nestings and, some like loop options, reverse option, and some more pitch stuff. Like, do we want to have a root tone? Stuff like that. Built-in little EQ. So here's what we got to watch out for. Got to make sure this isn't armed at the same time. So by default, there is no pitch assigned to this. It has decided C3 is going to be it, which is correct. We have velocity hooked up already, so let's take that off. So it actually sounds quite good. Being sampled around. Okay, how about some pitch? Okay, that works. We have our one-shot mode, so when we press it, it just goes all the way. Nice and annoying like that. Okay, so that's what's there. And, if you want, you can add some filtering. No problem. So the quality of that's pretty good. We come over to the Ableton one. So here we have classic mode, we have one-shot mode, and slice mode. Slice mode is quite interesting and would be quite the feature to have inside of Bitwig. However, in Bitwig itself, you can easily take a sample that's place it on the playlist and add those slice markers that this has done, and then you can tell the program to take all your slices and put it in a drum machine in samplers for you, which is pretty interesting. But this sampler itself already has that option, basically just built right into it, which I think is actually quite cool if you're trying to do sampling, obviously. Our classic mode, this is kind of what I would assume to be the ADSR equivalent over here in the Bitwig one, just like that. And then we have our one-shot mode, which will continue to play the sample until you specify a new note. Some interesting features that are already built in here is that we have what looks like a gate mode. We have some snapping. There is a filter built in here with some slope options. There's a fade in and there's a fade out. This is what is lacking from the Bitwig sampler. And there's also an LFO built in. To be fair, Bitwig 1 sampler did have a built-in LFO. I think it had about 3 built-in LFOs. And then they were removed because you can do this modulator system where you add the LFO over here. And then you can choose to have it mod whatever you want. So it's not lacking any features there. I think the main thing that this sampler has on the Bitwig sampler is this whole the way it chooses to do its pitching here and these settings, and like setting warp regions and whatnot if you want to warp or not to warp. So for example, the one thing that's nice is this complex pro pitch type. However, in the Bitwig sampler, it already uses the highest quality sampling that Bitwig has to offer, which is surprisingly similar to the Bitwig algorithm, which leaves us with a point where we can basically play this. And then coming back to the Bitwig sampler, we can do the same thing and listen for any flaws in the audio. Now, if we notice there, the difference between the Ableton and Bitwig one is that the sample is actually physically slowed when the pitch goes down. That is how the algorithm works. The quality is still very high, and in this sort of situation with this sort of sound, having that slowed down sample movement is not a bad thing. It's pretty beneficial, but you don't have any control over how it's going to work. The Ableton one doesn't even have the choice to go to the slowed down version, though. It has to be like that, unless there's some sort of other way to do it. But from what I can tell, there is not. So there is benefits and not benefits of both. Essentially, if you want to have a sound slowed down more, I don't think it's doable in this piece itself. I think you would have to stretch the audio first and then put it in here and do like a drum pad to play certain notes. In the Bitwig one, it always does that by default, which is an issue if you're trying to tune percussion using the sampler in Bitwig, because if you slow down the sample, you're going to lose a lot of the transients, and if you speed up the sample, you'll get more transients but lose more root tone. So when it comes to tuning the percussion in Bitwig, anything you put inside of the sampler should already be tuned. They both have loop options and all sorts of things. So they're essentially different. And I would say the only thing that makes the Ableton sampler standalone better is the fade in, fade out time option, because that is just not in this sampler in the Bitwig one. I know we have this back here control thing, a pitch envelope, and there's an LFO and like the filter sort of like controls or whatever. But here's the thing. In Bitwig, if you want to mess with the pitch, you simply enough just come in here and you can make a envelope here, and you can connect this envelope to the pitch and transpose by any manner you wish, and then use this envelope to choose what you want, and you have all the same functions as you did in Ableton. Meaning that the sampler, again, has all the same functions as this sampler, with the exception of the stretching algorithm and the fade in, fade out time. So the stretching algorithm is different, but they both have the same quality, and the only extra feature that makes the simpler better would be the fade in, fade out, which helps when you're doing looping. Because in here, you only have the ADSR fade in, fade out options, but if you're going to loop, it's going to be clicky. And that's an issue. That's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed watching.